Well, folks, it finally happened. The number of active listings, our supply of active listings this year is finally more than what we had last year at the same time. If you'd asked me in 2021 what this year was going to look like, I would have said in the beginning of the year and beginning of 2022 where we're going to see more listings and we're going to see fewer transactions and mellowing across the board in our market. That's not what happened. For several months now, the number of active listings, our supply of real estate to purchase, has been below where we were last time, and that's crazy because last year was a crazy year. But for the first time in months and months, we have turned a corner and that dynamic has changed. Where we are right now is 2217 active listings. Last week at this time, that number was 2173. That is an increase of about 9.2% in the number of active listings. And if we're comparing it to last year, that number was 2127. Now we're in an increase of 2% listings that last year versus this year. If we're looking at the demand side, so that's the supply side of our equation. But if we're looking at the demand side, the number of new pending transactions that went under contract, that number was down. So you can see here that the new pendings was 830 versus last week, which was 899. So that's the second week now that the number of new pending transactions, the number of homes that went under contract for that week has been down. And then I went back and looked at roughly the same time period last year. That number was 1,037, which represents about a 20% reduction in buyer activity by means of the number of new transactions that went under contract. If we're looking at the total number of pendings, that number is 5164 versus the previous week, which was 5186. Last year at this time, that number was 6393. That's down about 19.2% this year versus last year. So we are definitely seeing, I believe, less buyer activity. We're definitely seeing fewer lockbox opens this year versus last year, significantly fewer lockbox opens. And I do believe that a lot of that simply has to do with interest rates on the rise. How did the homes that sold do on the market? Well, once again, here's something that's a little bit confusing. The number of homes that sold, 742. Last year at this time, when I checked in at the same time, same day, that number was 684. So once again, we're starting to outpace last year for the number of homes that sold. But keep in mind that these are transactions that went under contract somewhere between 3 to 6 months ago, or weeks ago, 3 to 6 weeks ago. So this was representative of what was going on in our market several weeks ago. Those homes that did sell, they did pretty well on the market. On average, they spent 14 days on the market before they received an offer. Last year at this time, it was 19 days. Median was 4 days, and this year, and then last year, that median was also 4 days. The average sale price for this year came in at $639,037, $639,037. Last year, roughly this time, that number was $563,329. That's a 14.8% increase in the average sale price from last year to this year. So far this year in April, we had a couple weeks in the 17s, and now we've had a couple weeks in the 14s. I suspect we'll find something pretty similar, probably a little bit lower next week when we look at the final numbers for April. On average, homes sold for 104.6% over the asking price. So that's still, again, homes that went under contract 3 to 6 weeks ago, different market. We have a changing market. So that's not necessarily representative of what's going on right now. So that's what we have for numbers right now. If you have questions about what's going on in this extremely confusing market, feel free to post a comment down below or reach out to me directly. And feel free to like and subscribe to this channel. And we'll see you next week.